What's up guys, Pop101 here. Today we're going to be going over everything in Trials of the Shinobi 1.5, which includes all the weapons, spells, maps, and everything in between. And yes, you can get it in the link below. First things first, we have Itachi's Anbu sword. This is what our Anbu looks like. Asuma's chakra blade. Press the spell button. It activates. Our bomb kunai, which this one I'm actually going to spawn an enemy. Why don't we spawn a couple just for the future? Okay. So, our bomb kunai, we can pull the trigger and this is what our imbue looks like. What is super important though, on collision it explodes. And optionally, if you scroll all the way down on our mod menu, we can customize how fast it needs to be thrown in order to explode, the amount of knockback, the radius of the explosion, and whether it dismembers enemies or not. Our chakra receivers. Zakumo's chakra saber. Dari's cleaver sword. Our demon wind shuriken, which, if we press the spell button, it opens up. And when throwing it, I'm just going to use slow-mo for this. Check this out. When throwing it, it actually spins properly. One thing that I'd highly recommend using also is if we go into our mod menu and we turn on our auto target force. It's by 0 default. If we set it to 15, something like this. And I don't know, let's why don't we turn on slow-mo and we can use Quicksilver. You guys are going to like this. Just wait. 0.15 is enough. Auto target force is on. So let's get our Demon Wind Shuriken, which will automatically target the nearest enemy. And this works especially well with the Demon Wind Shuriken and the normal Shurikens. But for now, check this out. So you throw it, it auto-targets the nearest enemy. And nails. Oh my gosh. That was honestly way better than I thought it was going to be, so I'm glad that worked out. And just to show you guys, this is what our imbue looks like. I know. Super cool. Enma in his stab form, if we pull the trigger, it grows. Spell button, it shrinks. And if it gets this small, it's about the size of a can of tuna. So, I actually really enjoy that. And it eventually grows back. The Executioner's Blade. Hagoromo's 6-pass staff. Hamura, his brother's 6-pass staff. Hanzo's Kusarigama. Hidan's triple-bladed scythe, my favorite weapon in the entire pack. Oh yeah, just look at this. Absolutely stunning. What an incredible model. And yes, of course it pierces with all 3 blades. The Hiromekare, which at some point I will give it the ability to grow, but for now, you can just leave it as is. It still works just fine. For those of you that know the other name for that blade, let me know in the comments section below. But we have the Kabutoari Axe, our Kabutoari Hammer, Kiba's Lightning Blade, you press the spell button, instant imbue with lightning, Mifune's Kurosawa, basically his katana, absolutely love how this turned out, our Nuibari or Sewing Needle, the Long Chakra Receiver, Madara's Gunbai, which, yes, those do get lit on fire too. Very, very cool. Our Sword of Nunaboko, which only this part of it spirals and gets imbued, which I think turned out incredible. I accidentally made the emission look like that one day, and for some reason, I just kept it, because, I mean, come on. It looks so cool. We have Omoi's sword, which is basically a katana. Our paralysis kunai, which on collision with an enemy, notice there's a different tag. All we need to do is tap an enemy with it. They get paralyzed so they can all over just like that. But these guys have so low health that they just instantly died. But yeah, same thing. One thing I'd like to mention about both the bomb kunai and the paralysis kunai is if I grab this, yes, this is the imbue. I'm just gonna use slow-mo and throw it real quick for you guys so you can see. And if you take a look, you can actually see the back of it animating. So it does move when it spins like it should. Naruto's kunai, which if you press the spell button, it gets imbued with lightning. I figured it was more like Boruto's, but at the same time, I still kept it being called Naruto's. One that you guys know and love, Minato's Flying Thunder God kunai, which I'm actually going to turn off the book for this one. So while we're holding the kunai, we throw it, we press the spell button, we teleport to its location. Same thing with the one we're holding in the other hand, so you can go back and forth. That's cool, don't get me wrong. But let's look at a couple of the customizations. We have the teleport grab and auto rotate. Auto rotate, which automatically rotates you to face the nearest enemy. So either this guy or this one. And then if we actually get rid of her, we can only face this guy right here. And then our teleportation grab, which when we press the grip button, we teleport to it. So just wait. This is part of the mod that is my absolute favorite, and I have never felt more overpowered like this. So if we enable this, when throwing it, pressing the trigger, we teleport directly to it and we automatically grab it. Not only do we automatically do that, but when auto rotate is turned on, we automatically face the enemy. So that means when we're holding two in each hand, instead of needing to re-grab it, we can just go, pull the trigger, go, pull the trigger, and just keep going back and forth, until you want to stop, obviously. And then get as close as you want to the enemy, and of course you can impale them, do whatever you like. And then to turn it off, press the spell button, and when pulling the trigger, you no longer teleport to it. Completely customizable to your guys' liking, although for me, I absolutely love when the teleportation grab is turned on. Side note, there is customizations for Enma right here, so you can play around with that as you like. We have Sasuke's shurikens for the shuriken jutsu, so throw it at an enemy. It automatically animates when it's in the air, so if I wanted to throw it like that, take a look, it's spinning, it does its job, it's great. When add force is turned on, it'll automatically target the nearest enemy, and I just absolutely love how that turned out. One other cool feature about it is if you press the spell button, it does get imbued with lightning. And then there is a customization that I added to it just for fun. Let's take a look at this. If we go up to a Shuriken Jutsu, we can obviously have a despawn timer or a random imbue. Now, it's not necessary at all, but I figured this would pair well with the Shuriken Jutsu. So, fire imbue. This is the Shadow Clone imbue, which I will get to in just a minute. Atomic dismantling imbue, so you guys get the idea. But we can always turn that off if you guys don't want it. It's just a fun thing that I decided to add just because. Alright, now we have the Samehara, which I'm actually going to use... Hey, shut up, I'm talking. Excuse me. Okay, the Samehara is yelling at me. So I'm just going to turn that off real quick. I get it. I add it. Oh, and it's trying to jump out of my hands now. So I created the living Samehara. So it tries to jump out of your hand while it's active. And look at that. It's actually moving on its own. Come on. You can do it. There you go. Very cool, right? So you can customize it, turn off the sounds, or if you turn off the living Samehara, it will no longer move or make noises at all. It'll just be a weapon. I figured that would be especially fun when we get to the higher level versions of Samehara. So you know what? I'm just going to turn this off temporarily. It does also have a health on kill, but what I want to show you is the new auto evolve feature. If it starts evolved or not. So when you spawn it in, it's disabled. So whenever they get spawned in, that's what this activates. So all we need to do is enable it, go back to our book, spawn it in, and now we have the fully evolved Samehada. I mean, just look at this. So cool, so cool. And of course, it shreds enemies to pieces. We have Sasuke's Sword of Kusanagi. Press the spell button, it gets imbued with lightning. Sasuke's Susanoo Sword, which, when I do create the Susanoo, I figured this is just a fun little thing to have. Although it's not the best at the moment, it's just a placeholder, and I don't know, I enjoy it. We have our Senbon, which do the same thing as the Paralysis Kunai. So, if we go to an enemy and just go, boop, they get paralyzed, and if we knock him over, he died because he hit the ground, but you guys get the idea. Paralyzes them. This is what our little imbue looks like. We have our Shibuki, which on collision, once we reach the certain velocity, all the same customizations, knocks back enemies, although the one difference between the Shibuki is if we go to our customizations, it starts with dismemberment enabled. Although I'm not going to be showing you guys that, it dismembers every single limb on their body. We have our Shikisaiken, one of the Sage of Six Paths tools. We have Shisui's Tanto, Jiraiya's stone swords that he uses to fight against pain. And yes, I know you guys are curious, it does have all the proper audios. So, take this. It is actually the rock or stone audios. So it's always fun with stabbing that into enemies and hearing no longer the blade sounds, but stone. Oh yeah, we have Super Vibrato Lightning Release, or as you guys might know it, Killer Bee's Sword, where he uses all of them to fight against Sasuke and all of his enemies. Press the spell button to imbue with lightning. We have Sword of the Thunder God, press the spell button. It is pure particle-based weapons. It's basically a lightsaber, but electric. And then last but not least, we have Tobirama's Sword. This is our imbue, and we have gone through every single one of the weapons in Trials of the Shinobi. All, 39 of them? Wow, I didn't realize there were that many. And I just want to take a second. I'm recording with Prism XR's smooth-sounding earbuds and extremely comfortable VR mat, and the high-quality Antlion audio mod mic. I've been really enjoying them all for the last while, so if you guys want to check them out to enhance your VR gameplay and experience, there are links in the description. But back to the video. Okay, now we've gone over all of those incredible products. Now we have our Amaterasu to start, which we can customize our projectile speed. For this, I'm actually going to spawn in, let's do a couple enemies there. Let's do 2 over here as well. And I just want to let you guys know, I do plan on updating this pretty soon, maybe for 1.6, so that instead of it being a direct projectile shooting out of your hands, it is like the Kamui and activates wherever it is on collision, using raycasts and line renderers, but we'll get into that in another video. So pull the trigger, release, you shoot out the Amaterasu black flame projectile directly from your eyes, proper audios and everything. And when it hits enemies, they get lit on black fire, and these guys are weak, so they die immediately. If we grab a weapon, pull the trigger, we have the Amaterasu imbue, which when we hit an enemy with it, they get lit on black fire as well. And I'm just going to get rid of that for now. If we use 2 and merge together, the final ability is shooting out a gigantic Amaterasu, which lights the entire area on black fire. Super cool, super fun to use. Taking a look, we have our Chidori, which if we select it, there it is. You pull the grip, Chidori forms in your hand. You can customize the effects, whether it's Kakashi's purple or our Onyx Chidori. But I'm just going to keep it standard for now. The electrocution power, so when you electrocute them, how much electricity they get electrified by, like this guy right here. How long it lasts for, whether or not the sharp spear kills you. So if we pull the trigger and then the grip, shoot it out like that, we have, okay, the easiest one right here. So if we grab them, pull the trigger, they get electrocuted, super easy. One that you guys know and love, that I've customized a lot, we have Sasuke's Kirin. So if we pull the trigger and go up, the lightning dragon Kirin comes down, explodes, and electrocutes everybody in the vicinity, also knocking them back. So if we wanted to do it one more time, Oh yeah. That is awesome. We can customize how fast it comes down, how quickly you need to throw your hand up to activate the radius, the explosion force, basically everything about it. Let's take a look at this. So if we merge both the Chidori and the Chidori with the trigger, merge it together, we have our Chidori Senbon, which shoot out the electric Senbon at all of our enemies. On collision, they get electrocuted, and it's basically the Senbon that I showed you before, although they are all electrified. And just to show you, this is what they look like. Super cool. We can customize everything about that, like how fast they get shot out, how quickly, how many at once, and how quickly they despawn too, because sometimes they can cause a bit of lag, but that's why I left it at 5, because it's pretty close. And the last of the important things, customizing how much overpowered we get with our lightning cloak. So we get our Chidori and our Rinnegan, we merge together, pull apart, and we are now electrified. Notice I am a lot quicker than I was before, and if we actually spawn in an enemy, notice, they get knocked out to Kingdom Come. So much fun to use. Can also jump higher and see everything in the distance. One cool thing that I did to update this was, okay, notice, we are still using it, and if I want to use the Rasengan as a test real quick, we can use all the abilities of other spells while having this cloak on. And all we need to do to turn it off is the same exact thing. So it does work while using other spells and stuff as well. And you can easily just re-equip it to turn it off. And last but not least, the imbue radius. So how far away you need to hold the Chidori near an item in order to imbue it. If we go to our expansion jutsu, pull the trigger, our hands grow, and similarly to the abilities of our lightning cloak, on collision, obviously knockback is way, way, way more, and a ton of fun to use. We can also increase the size or change the size of our hands so they're that big. We can change them live too, so if I really want it, notice our hand size is changing. And if you don't want your hands to be that big, you can always keep them this size right here. Customize how much they get knocked back, how quickly the force is applied, and then whether or not on punching them, they get dismembered. And one other cool thing is if we grab a weapon, you pull the trigger while your hand is gigantic, the weapon grows in tandem with your abilities. So, this is how big our dagger is now, and of course, obviously still works completely fine. And the most important ability that I know you guys have been waiting for is if we get our expansion jutsu, we merge it together and pull apart, we are now enormous. Just look how big my hand is compared to him. Oh yeah. And yes, with it being this size, we can pick up enemies properly and throw them. Just keep in mind, it is still a little bit glitchy, but it works for the most part, so no worries. And to turn it off, just merge, pull apart, and here we are. Fireball Jutsu, which I showed you guys a little bit already. We spawn in a couple of enemies over there, and let's do a couple right here. If we get it, you pull the trigger, it explodes, also lights the area on fire like normal. On collision, it explodes, knocking enemies back, lighting them on fire. Super cool, super fun to use. If I grab a weapon with it and pull the trigger, it gets imbued with our Fireball Jutsu, which lights enemies on fire on contact. And just to show you guys that, well, we come back over here and say, hey, that's what it looks like. You can customize how far it gets knocked back, how quickly it gets shot out, the explosion radius, and whether or not there's gravity. So, we shoot it out, now it's arcing downwards. Just because, why not? Although you can always shoot it out, turn off gravity, and that's what it looks like. It works fine either way. We have our Kamui Witch. Just wait. There's actually quite a few new things that I added to this. Just wait. You guys will see it in a second. So if we pull the trigger, everything gets absorbed into our Kamui. Everything. Including all those enemies get shrunk down and shoved into it. But one thing I added is if we pull the grip and then the trigger, oh, what was that? Yeah, we can actually shoot out all of the absorbed projectiles, the items, and even the enemies that were stored in our Kamui dimension. Yeah, I know. I know you guys are enjoying it. That's super cool. So, of course, that's what it looks like, and it's a ton of fun to use. You can use it to aim directly at enemies. Any items that are stored on the enemies as well will be added to our Kamui dimension. But, check this out. Now, if we get the Kamui and put it in both hands, I do plan on creating a merge. When pulling apart, it shoots out everything in the Kamui dimension in every random direction. But that's not yet. So what we're going to do is merge it. If we push our hands together, we go into our Kamui dimension where everything that we absorbed spawns in with us. So, for example, this lady that came with us now started in our Kamui dimension. Honestly, just take a look. Our Kamui dimension works great. And yes, it is a separate map, but since Blade and Sorcery maps and everything loads so much more quickly, this works perfectly. It only took about 2 to 3 seconds to spawn in here. All we need to do is merge it again, and then we go back exactly where we were before. Super cool, super fun to use, and I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of how the Kamui's turned out so far. And another feature of the Kamui is if we throw it on an enemy, now no longer does trigger and grip make us intangible. What we need to do to become intangible now is, if I had a weapon, I could show you guys. So, we need to be holding a weapon and pulling the trigger. That is when we become completely intangible. And if we grab an enemy and pull the trigger, they get to become intangible as well. But if you throw them while you're still holding it, they do come back and become tangible again. Just because if they didn't, that would kind of suck. It would be very difficult if you had enemies just going completely through the ground, because that would make the waves stop working completely. And let's spawn in a couple more enemies, because this next one on the list is a ton of fun to use. You guys are going to love it. There's also a ton of customizations for it. We have, after the Kamui, our particle style. So we can increase the radius of our projectile. When hitting an enemy, they get instantly vaporized or near them. So honestly, if we have a couple guys close to each other like that, they can all get vaporized too. On our merge, we have our atomic dismantling beam. Instantly get vaporized. I am curious whether or not I should add particles to it, but for now, let me know what you guys think in the comment section, because they do get vaporized, but there's no poof of smoke, there's no nothing. So I don't know. Whatever you guys think, let me know. Aside from that, we have whether or not you can drop the items when getting dismantled. So I always want them to drop their weapons. So they get vaporized, their weapons stay. Whether or not the creatures get dismantled or the items get dismantled when using our atomic dismantling beam. So I've actually never tried this. So let's keep that like that. And let's see if we can just get rid of their weapons. Oh, look at that. We can. So we can keep them alive while vaporizing any weapons they're holding. That's good to know. I don't know why you'd need that, but it's something fun to use. And we have our weighted boulder and lightened boulder. So, while particle style is equipped, pull the trigger, enemies become super light, and they can actually float, just like Onoki. Oh, and he died. Opposite of that, press the spell button, and enemies become super heavy. I can't actually lift enemies up. That's how heavy they become. In case you guys don't believe me, just take a look at this. Yes, there are all the proper audios when those things happen, but trigger, and then spell button becomes super heavy. Look at that. The weapon becomes so heavy, even with fast weapon handling, that I can barely use it. Huh. And when you drop something like that on an enemy, they can never get up. Last thing that I have, just for fun, there's no way to turn it off, but it's an imbue speed boost. So if you turn on self-collision and you hit yourself with an imbued weapon, you will get faster. But onto the one that I know you guys love, the Rasengan. This one, we're going to need a bunch of different enemies because there's so many new things that have been added to it. It's crazy. Obviously, we can use it in both hands. Oh yeah. Just one more time. Look at this. That is super cool and looks fantastic. Now the Rasengan works based on how quickly it hits the enemy. So how fast you are, its speed, and boom. Knocks back an enemy like so. Same thing with this fella right here. And if we pull the trigger and then the grip, we have our giant Rasengan or the Odama Rasengan, which also knocks enemies back a ton. I did change how it was coded so it does work a bit better than before. Now, all the different forms of it. Alright, with a fire imbue, we have our fire Rasengan. With lightning, we have the wind Rasengan. With gravity, we have our magnet Rasengan. And yes, they do have all of the abilities. And something cool, since it is imbued with gravity, if you hit an enemy with it, they do float. Which I think it's something that I didn't mean to do, but it's also pretty cool that it works like that. Aside from that, a few of the new ones. If you imbue it with the Rinnegan, we have our Tailed Beast Bomb, or Super Mini Tailed Beast Bomb, since it's in Rasengan form. Still knocks enemies back, but the cool thing about this is you can throw it, unlike the others, it knocks enemies back and explodes. I absolutely love how it turned out. If we imbue our Rasengan with a Shadow Clone Jutsu, we have Boruto's Rasengan, which is smaller, white. It's his vanishing Rasengan, which slowly shrinks and disappears. Now, yes, it hit the wall over there. That's obviously why. But if we do that one more time and actually hit an enemy, boom. And I wanted to keep it extremely overpowered. So that's exactly what I did. It does even more knockback. So if we use two Rasengans at the exact same time, we merge them together. I fixed and made our merge Rasengan, or Asura's Rasengan, work perfectly. So now there's no more issues with the particles or audios. And we can shoot it out. On collision, it explodes. And how about I hit some enemies this time? Oh yeah. Explodes, little bit of an explosion. Nothing super overpowered, but it does knock them back a ton, which I love. And now something brand new is you can customize how far they get knocked back. So in our case, I do want to showcase this just a little bit. Our normal knockback multiplier for the Rasengan, we now set that to 0.1. So on collision, oh no, there's no real knockback, which that stinks. On the flip side, if we set it to something like 2.5 and we go to hit an enemy, check this out. Oh yeah, they get knocked back a ton more, which I'm super happy how that turned out. You can customize our normal Rasengan, the giant Rasengan, and our explosion force of the Asura Rasengan as well. Now we get the Rasenshuriken, which also has a couple of awesome forms. So let's spawn in some enemies and take a peek. Alright, I think that is enough enemies. So, if we select our Rasenshuriken, pull the trigger, we now have the proper animation for the particles. Follow your hand perfectly. You throw it, it explodes and knocks enemies back. Super cool. You can also customize whether or not it dismembers them. You can customize how much it explodes, the radius, and knockback when you hit enemies because, check this out. We can also knock back enemies with our Rasenshuriken. I figured it was something fun to add. Customize the knockback with that just like the Rasengan. Now we have all of our forms. So our Lava Rasenshuriken, which on collision, we have those fire particles. We have our Tail Beast Rasenshuriken. Knocks enemies back, explodes in purple. And one cool thing that I decided to add was if we select it in both hands. I do need to fix this, but for now, you merge it, it will become a super gigantic Rasenshuriken, which we can hold over our heads, throw, and have it to extra knockback and extra explosions. The final part of the Rasenshuriken, which I'm super happy about, is if we select our Rasengan and our Rasenshuriken, we merge it together, we have the Rasenringu. And throwing it out, oh yeah. A gigantic explosion, tons of knockback, tons of fun to use. Now we have our Rinnegan, which, let's take a look because I did decide to upgrade this quite a bit, so I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy that. We pull the trigger, we shoot out Jigen's chakra rods, Pull the trigger and the grip, we get the long chakra rod, which is great for some baseball. Ton of fun to use to knock enemies back, or if you want to pierce enemies like that. We have Rene Rebirth. Pull the trigger on a dead enemy. They come back to life. And he did start getting up and getting revived as an ally. The only difference is I have a mod that automatically removes dead enemies just to help clear up space. So honestly, I can have all these guys in here and I'm not experiencing lag at all. So definitely get my better performance mod. But this video isn't about that. So if we go back, and of course we can customize what we shoot out. So if I wanted to shoot out a bomb kunai, for example, that's what it looks like. Anything like that. It works for both. I mean, honestly, the sort of Nunoboko. But let's go back to the chakra receiver, how quickly they get shot out, how quickly they despawn. Or if we set it to 0, they will never despawn. We have our merges. So just wait. So we merge our Rinnegan and Rinnegan together. Push apart. We have Almighty Push, which knocks enemies back. And then the counterpart, which is the Universal Pull. Pull together, enemies come directly towards your player. If we have the Rinnegan in our left hand and we throw it up in the air, just wait. We do it like this. We spawn in all of Ishiki's disruption cubes, which all knock back enemies. They have particles on collision and explode everybody. Oh dang, they're all dead. Well, that's funny. You can customize how quickly you need to throw your hands up for both the disruption cubes and for planetary devastation, which I'm getting to in just a second. Then you can customize the size and everything. So if you want to have little itty bitty disruption cubes, like so, take a look. Bam, nice and tiny. It's really that simple to get everything customized exactly to your liking. You can spawn in as many of them as you want, have them do a customized amount of knockback, quickly they come down to the ground, and just customize basically everything overall. Although I do love how they are by default. And now for the most important one, our planetary devastation. So for this, I think we're going to need quite a few enemies to spawn in. Now this is still a work in progress. There are still a few things that I do plan on changing. But all we need to do, just like the disruption cubes, get our hand, throw it up. We have our black cube, or our black sphere right there, that spawns. Oh yeah. It forms directly in front of us, and on collision, boom. A nice explosion, knockbacks enemies, explodes them. I do plan on changing the particles a bit and making them bigger, but for now, I think that works just great. We can customize how big it is, how quickly it forms, and all sorts of other cool things. Especially, so if we have one, it spawns directly in front of us up overhead. Or, if you guys really want to get fancy, just wait. I don't really know if I need to spawn in enemies to show you guys this one. I'm just going to spawn in a couple. We have our multi-planetary devastation, which all we need to do is select the Rinnegan, throw our hand up, and now that we've selected 10, like so, take a look. Oh yeah. Oh man, it's coming. 10 different planetary devastation meteors that all explode and knock back enemies. Oh, there's one lady still alive. Well, I guess this leads me into one of the next parts of the Rinnegan that isn't the merge yet. So we'll get into that in one more second. If we pull the trigger and the spell button while holding a weapon, we use the Amano Tujakara to swap places with any enemy we're looking at, which can be customized so that it's not only creatures, but also items as well. So what we're going to do is swap places with her mid-air, and notice she falls to her untimely death. Lots of fun to use, and I really enjoy that working with how well it does. The last thing that I really want to show you guys is our portal. So we have Sasuke's portal, which I'm going to show you real quick. If we get the Rinnegan and Rinnegan, instead of merging, pulling apart, if we merge and pull apart while also holding both of our grips, we get Sasuke's portal. which notice we can throw things into, and it works similar to the Kamui, which how everything functions. Can throw enemies inside of it. There you go. Just like that. Come on, lady. They all get instantly transported into wherever the location sends you. In our case, it's the canyon. You can customize wherever you like, though. I'm going to say, you know what, let's go to the arena first. So all we need to do is walk into it. So just walk into the portal, and just like the Kamui, everything that you threw in spawns with you. So in our case, we have these. Hey, come on, man. Stay down. Punk. The weapons and the enemy. Okay. You're done. You're done. There you go. And one thing about it is it doesn't take you back because it isn't the Kamui dimension. It is very different. But there are all these different things. So any custom map as well you can teleport to. For example, honestly, if I wanted to go to my green screen map, merge the green screen map that I used in order to play Blade and Sorcery in mixed reality, take a look. Oh yeah, I'm very happy with how that's turned out so far. But without further ado, let's go through the rest of that. We have our Shadow Clone Jutsu, which I did add something very cool. So just wait, you guys. Pull the trigger. Obviously, we have these lame brain Shadow Clones. And I'm going to use the Rinnegan as well so I can show you guys more easily. That's how they spawn in. I think they're pretty cool. When they die, they explode instantly. Oh, there we go. Come on. On collision, there you go. Easy. Super cool, right? Well, you can now customize it, so instead of it being just normal Shadow Clones, we have our Lightning Shadow Clones as well, which when one of them dies, anyone near them also gets electrocuted. Just like that. And last but not least, a brand new thing, which I am super excited about, are Itachi's Shadow Clones. So, on death, we have his Crow Clone Jutsu. Come on. It explodes into a bunch of clones. I absolutely love how this turned out. And of course, that was a lightning one, but man, am I happy. So you can customize which one you use by default, how many you use for the merge. So we set this to 5. And we go to our Shadow Clone. Merge. Pull apart. In this case, I spawned 5 of them around me. And the other cool thing is we can customize how many Shadow Clones are spawned when we're using the special ones like both the Crow and the Lightning. So in order to do that, we have a couple of different merges. So we use our Shadow Clone and we have our Chidori. Merge them together. Pull apart. We get our Lightning Clones, which start out electrified. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. They're supposed to stay electrified the entire time. I'm not sure why that goes away, but, you know, that could be just an issue with the game, so I'll work on that for a future version. Aside from that, if we merge our Shadow Clone with our Amaterasu, we get Itachi's Crow Clones. Because let's be honest, that's awesome. And the last most important update to the Shadow Clone Jutsu is we get a Demon Wind Shuriken I can show you. If you guys know what episode of the anime this is from, let me know in the comment section below. But all we need to do is select the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and it is a little bit weird. So you can imbue with it. When you release the trigger, though, a Shadow Clone spawns. That's only the way that I was able to get it done just because of how Blade and Sorcery does it, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So we have our imbued Shadow Clone. You throw it, and on collision, bam, it goes into our very own Shadow Clone. So our weapon to Shadow Clone Jutsu. Now, I know Naruto uses it a bunch, especially when he's pretending to be rocks, or, in our case, he and Sasuke had ended up using this in an episode of the anime. I forget which. But I always thought it was pretty cool, and I always enjoyed it, so try this out. Imagine you're fighting some enemies and, oh no, whatever will you do if they start ganging up on you? Bam. And finally, we can go over these scripted abilities. So first up, we have Shinobi grappling. So you can disarm and steal a weapon when grabbing an enemy and pulling the trigger. So you grab the arm, you pull the trigger, and then you get to see it. So throw it. So watch this. So aside from her attacking us right now, we grab her hand and pull the trigger, nothing happens. But if we do that with Shinobi grappling set to disarm, you pull the trigger, she drops her weapon. That's pretty cool. Alright, you can go over there, lady. Now, if we set it to steal, watch this. This is one of my favorite new parts. We pull the trigger, not only do we disarm them, but we steal the weapon that they had. So being able to kill enemies with their own weapons, I think that's super cool. Now, it wasn't necessarily Shinobi-like, but at the same time, I figured it was close enough that it could be added. Now, there is a paralysis timer for both the Senbon and for the paralysis kunai, which can be controlled here. And then how quickly the weapons that activate can turn off, like Asuma's Chakra Blade. But there you have it, guys. This is Trials of the Shinobi 1.5. It is on VRG or virtualrealitygaming.tech. Link below in the description. It's coming to Nexus sometime before 1.0, I believe, so stay tuned for that. The rest of the maps and all of the Naruto NPCs will be coming after 1.0 is released, so stay tuned for that as well. But that's it. So if you guys like this video, you like Trials of the Shinobi, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. Thanks for watching.